16,250 metric tons. It is a mass equivalent to a fleet of 35 fully loaded Airbus A380 Super Jumbos. It is the weight of a single man-made monolith, hewn from the living bedrock. It lies there still, in China, in the dusty Yangshan quarry, not far from Nanjing, fractured by time, yet utterly immovable. A silent witness, not merely to ambition, but to something our accepted history refuses to acknowledge. The official story calls it a failure, a grandiose project commissioned in the early 15th century by the Yongle Emperor of the Ming Dynasty, a man whose will was absolute, a man who usurped the throne from his own nephew and felt a desperate need to legitimize his power. He did so through projects that challenged the very heavens. He built the Forbidden City in Beijing from nothing, the largest palace complex on the planet. He dispatched Admiral Zheng He's treasure fleet, an armada of colossal ships that dominated the Indian Ocean a century before Columbus. This was perhaps the greatest logistical mind of his millennium. And to honor his father, the dynasty's founder, he ordered the creation of a stele of unprecedented scale. It still lies in the quarry, separated into its three intended parts. The base, weighing 6,000 tons. The crown, carved with dragons, weighing nearly 9,000 tons. And the body, the block itself, 16,250 tons, stretching 50 meters in length. The accepted narrative claims that after the Yongle Emperor's death, his successors assessed the task. They concluded that moving these blocks a mere 10 kilometers to the mausoleum was impossible, and they simply gave up. They called it divine intervention, a convenient excuse that the spirits had forbidden the stones from being moved. But this is not an answer, it is an evasion. Because the question that should haunt every engineer, every historian, is not why they failed. The question is what they knew that made them believe they could possibly succeed. The Yongle Emperor was no madman. He did not initiate projects without a plan, and he commanded the finest engineers in the known world. What plan did they present to him? Theories speak of waiting for the deepest winter, of flooding the roads to create a path of ice. But the laws of physics shatter this theory. The immense pressure exerted by such a weight, even when distributed, would have instantly turned ice to water and solid earth to a swamp. It would not have been a path to glory, but a tomb of mud. So what did they know? What technology had they inherited from dynasties long past? What knowledge of acoustics, of resonance, of a physics now lost to us was recorded in their imperial archives, giving them the sublime confidence to carve a mountain from the earth and the audacity to believe they could make it move? What was the source of such colossal, such audacious certainty? The stone of Anshan is no monument to failure. It is a memorial to forgotten knowledge. A gigantic question mark weighing 16,000 tons hewn from solid granite. And this is not an isolated anomaly. It is merely the largest piece of evidence in a global file. A case spanning continents and millennia. A case concerning a civilization whose footprints are so vast that we stand inside them and refuse to believe they were ever made by feet at all. We dismiss them as flukes of nature, as erosion, as geological formations.
Most people stop watching right here, but if you continue, you'll discover something almost no one knows.
Because to acknowledge them is to acknowledge that our history, our comfortable, linear narrative of progress from the cave to the skyscraper, is fundamentally flawed. Our inquiry does not begin with the question, who are we? It begins with the question, what have we forgotten? to find. Our first destination, the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, a place so ancient its origins are lost in the mists of myth. The Romans called it Heliopolis, the city of the sun, and here they would erect what was meant to be the crowning achievement of their engineering genius, a temple complex dedicated to Jupiter. Its scale is staggering. 6 surviving columns soaring 70 feet high still command the landscape. Nearby, the Temple of Bacchus stands more perfectly preserved than any Roman temple on earth, including the Pantheon in Rome. It is a triumph of Roman will, constructed at the zenith of the empire's power. And we know how the Romans built. We have their manuals, their texts. We have the 10 books of Vitruvius's De Architectura. We know of their cranes, the polyspastos, powered by great human-driven tread wheels, capable of hoisting considerable weight. We know of the single greatest documented lift in Roman history, the pedestal for Trajan's column. It weighed approximately 100 tons. This was their known limit, their engineering apex, 100 tons. Now, approach the western retaining wall of the Temple of Jupiter. Look beneath the Roman stonework. The Roman masonry, precise, professional, rests upon something else, upon a foundation, a platform constructed from blocks that make the Roman record of on. This is the place known as the Trilithon. 3 monoliths carved from limestone, set in a perfect line more than 20 feet above the ground. Each of these 3 stones measures over 63 feet in length. Each weighs, by the most conservative estimates, between 800 and 900 tons. 900 tons, 9 times heavier than the absolute documented maximum the engineers of Rome ever hoisted. The official academic explanation is that the Romans accomplished this feat. In the 2nd century AD, that they somehow miraculously surpassed their own documented engineering capabilities by a factor of 9, and then never, not once, not anywhere, not in a single text, not in a single letter, not on a single triumphal arch, saw fit to mention it. This is more than mere silence. It is a void in the historical record, a deafening emptiness where the story of our own past ought to be. It is a deafening silence in the historical record. The single greatest engineering feat in human history, accomplished by the most meticulous record-keeping civilization the world has ever known, went completely unmentioned. It defies logic. It borders on the impossible. The answer is simple, yet it shakes the very foundations of accepted history. The Romans did not build it. They found it. They discovered this platform, this megalithic podium, constructed by a civilization immeasurably more ancient and technologically advanced. They looked upon it and stood in the same awe that we do today. And they decided it was the only place on earth worthy of their greatest temple. They built upon it, they claimed it. For those who doubt, our investigation leads us 900 meters away to the quarry. There, among the ancient tool marks, lies Hajar al-Hibla, the stone of the pregnant woman. Still attached to its bedrock, it is perfectly cut on 5 sides. It is 21 meters long. It weighs 1,000 tons. It rests as if the workers simply left for their midday meal and never returned. For decades, this stone was the largest known monolith in the world, a mystery explained away by theories of extraordinary manpower. But in 2014, the German Archaeological Institute, excavating nearby, cleared away layers of sediment and found another. It lies just beneath the first, and it is larger. It weighs 1,650 metric tons. Let that settle. 1,650 tons, more than 2.5 times the weight of a fully loaded Airbus 380 passenger jet. Today, we possess barely enough technology to move such an object. The world's largest Moby lift capacity of 1,200 tons, and that is close to the chassis on a perfectly flat concrete pad.
Stay with me, because what comes next has been hidden for a very long time. And only a few people know the truth behind it.
Here, we're talking about moving a 1,650-ton block over a kilometer of rough terrain and then hoisting it onto a 6-meter-high platform. This is the turning point. This is no longer a question of Roman rollers or earthen ramps. Any ramp capable of supporting such a weight and raising it to such a height would have been an engineering marvel in its own right, demanding more material and labor than the temple itself. This is a question of a civilization that casually carved 1,500-ton blocks from the living rock, and then, for some unknown reason, abandoned the largest of them all. Baalbek is not a Roman temple. It is a Roman temple built upon an artifact, a relic, a legacy left by a civilization whose capabilities our current model of history simply cannot explain. And this anomaly is not alone. We journey across the Atlantic. We ascend into the Andes of Peru. To an altitude of 3,700 meters above sea level, where the air is thin and the sky is an impossible blue. Here, looming over the ancient Inca capital of Cusco, is a citadel that struck the Spanish conquistadors speechless. Sacsayhuamán. When Francisco Pizarro and his men marched into Cusco in the year 1533, they could not believe what they saw. They were soldiers, not archaeologists, but they knew the Inca. They had seen their cities, their temples, their neat and functional stonework. And then, high in the Andes, they saw this. The chronicler, Pedro Cieza de León, could only write that these walls seemed to have been built by demons rather than by men. The Inca themselves, when questioned by the Spaniards, offered a startling confession. They did not build the oldest, most massive sections of this fortress. They claimed it was the work of a far more ancient race, a civilization of giants that rose and fell long before their own empire ever came to be. Here, 3 massive, zigzagging walls ascend the hillside, assembled from gargantuan boulders of andesite, a hard volcanic rock. The largest of these stones weigh between 120 and 140 tons. But the sheer mass is not the heart of the mystery. The true enigma is the technique. These are not simple rectangular blocks. This is polygonal masonry of an impossible order. Each stone is a unique, incredibly complex shape, sometimes bearing 12, 13, or even 14 distinct angles. And every one of these multi-ton behemoths is joined to its neighbors with such—
Stay with me, because what comes next has been hidden for a very long time. And only a few people know the truth.
Microscopic precision that not even a sheet of paper can be forced into the seams. There is no mortar. The stones are held fast by their own immense weight and this seemingly supernatural fit. In a region ravaged by earthquakes, it is an ingenious design. During a tremor, the stones are said to dance, locking and unlocking in place to dissipate the seismic energy before settling back into their perfect, immovable union. How was this achieved? Official archaeology offers a theory of almost unimaginable patience. That thousands of Inca workers would drag a boulder into place, painstakingly trace the complex shape of its neighbor using simple chords, then spend months or even years grinding it down with smaller stones and wet sand until the fit was absolute. It is a theory that requires a staggering expenditure of human life and time, yet leaves no trace of any advanced tools. But when you look closer, this theory begins to fracture. On certain blocks, one can find strange vitrified patches, as if the surface of the rock had been melted into glass. On others, the stones do not look merely polished, they look soft. It is as if, for a moment in time, a 100-ton block was as pliable as putty, pressed into its neighbor to form a perfect organic impression. Here, in the presence of these anomalies, local legends and the theories of more daring researchers speak of what is seldom uttered in academic halls: a lost science. They whisper that the ancient builders knew the secret of softening stone. Folk tales tell of a small bird in the Amazon which uses the juice of a rare plant to dissolve rock for its nest. Is this merely folklore? Almost certainly. But what if it is a cultural echo of a forgotten truth? A lost knowledge of powerful organic acids, or something even stranger, a mastery of harmonic resonance capable of altering the very structure of matter? We are left to wonder if the stones of Sacsayhuamán are a monument not to brute force, but to a profound understanding of the universe we have yet to rediscover. They stand not as a testament to what a civilization can build, but as a silent, humbling question about all that it can forget. It is an idea that seems to belong to the realm of science fiction, that sound, tuned to specific frequencies, could be used to alter the very properties of matter, to lessen the weight of stone. Yet how else to explain a precision we cannot replicate even today? This is not an isolated mystery. Travel to Ollantaytambo, another fortress of the Inca. There, crowning a mountain, you find the Temple of the Sun. It is composed of 6 gigantic monoliths of pink granite, each weighing some 50 tons. The quarry? It lies on another mountain entirely, across a valley, across the rushing Urubamba River, and thousands of feet up a punishing slope. The builders would have had to lower these 50-ton blocks, ferry them across the river, and then haul them up the face of another mountain. The evidence of this impossible journey is still visible. They are called the piedras cansadas, the tired stones. They lie halfway along the path, abandoned when the technology, whatever it was, failed. On is precision engineering. We climb higher still, onto the Bolivian Altiplano, to an altitude of 12,800 feet, nearly 4,000 meters. This is one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth, cold, barren, and starved of oxygen. Civilizations here struggle to survive. Near the ancient city of Tiwanaku lies a place unlike any other on the planet, Puma Punku, the Gate of the Puma. It is not a temple, it is chaos, a collection of giant, high-technology building blocks scattered across a field as if by some monstrous explosion or cataclysm. The materials are grey diorite and red andesite, registering a 6 and a 7 on the Mohs scale of hardness, nearly as unyielding as granite. Here there are no colossal blocks on the scale of Baalbek. The largest weigh a mere 130 tons. The marvel of Puma Punku is not weight, it is precision. We see blocks known as the H blocks. They are flawlessly shaped, and there are dozens of them, all identical, as if they came off an asimur. But look closer. We see slots cut with millimeter accuracy. We see perfect internal right angles. We see rows of perfectly circular, perfectly smooth holes drilled clean through the dense rock, as if by a high-speed bit. This should not be possible. This is not the work of stone mallets and bronze chisels. Bronze does not cut diorite. Stone hammers do.
Welcome to my channel. If you're fascinated by hidden truths, lost civilizations, and unsolved mysteries, you're in the right place. Make sure to subscribe.
Not create flawlessly flat surfaces and razor-sharp internal corners. It looks machined. It looks as if someone used modern power tools. The official explanation holds that the Tiwanaku culture crafted this site between 500 and 1000 AD, using their primitive tools and incredible patience. But not one of these supposed tools has ever been found. Engineer Christopher Dunn, who has spent decades studying these stones, argues that the evidence points to a level of technology far beyond anything we attribute to the ancient world. The stones of Pumapunku do not ask us to rewrite a chapter of our history. They demand we question the entire book, to consider a past far more complex and advanced than we have ever dared to imagine. Engineers studying these objects have concluded that the only way to replicate the precision of Pumapunku is with computer-controlled machine tools. What if we are looking not at the remains of a temple, but of a machine? What if these intricate blocks were not decorations, but functional parts of something far greater, shattered by a cataclysm that scattered them across the high plain? Pumapunku does not ask the question, how did they lift this? It asks a far more profound question. How did they make this? And that inquiry leads us to even more disturbing clues. We cannot speak of megaliths without journeying to Egypt. The Great Pyramid, 2,300,000 blocks, aligned to true north with a precision we only surpassed in the 20th century. We are told the story of ramps, of brute force, and of wet sand. But let us move beyond the outer shell. Let us go inside. We ascend the Grand Gallery and enter the King's Chamber. It is built from massive blocks of rose granite brought from Aswan, more than 800 kilometers away. The beams that form the ceiling of this chamber weigh between 50 and 80 tons each. They are raised to a height of 140 feet above the ground. Here, the theory of wet sand fails. The theory of a simple ramp collapses. A ramp required to lift an 80-ton block to such a height would demand more material and labor than the pyramid itself. And again, there is only silence. Not a single hieroglyph, not one papyrus describes how this was done. But the true mystery may not be at Giza. It lies buried nearby, at Saqqara, in a place called the Serapeum. Underground, in tunnels hewn from solid bedrock, rest 25 gigantic boxes. They are carved from single monolithic pieces of Aswan granite and diorite. Each box weighs between 70 and 80 tons. The lid adds another 30 tons, for a total of 100 tons. The official version? These were sarcophagi for sacred bulls. But look at them. Precision. Again, that same impossible precision. The interior surfaces are perfectly flat. The corners are perfect 90-degree angles. The lids are fitted so tightly they create a hermetic seal. These are not coffins. They are high-technology containers. Their exactitude surpasses anything the dynastic Egyptians created in their temples. When they were found, many were empty. And here, as at Pumapunku, we find the traces left behind. The archaeologist Flinders Petrie, the father of Egyptology, found granite drill cores in Egypt, cylinders of stone left behind after drilling. He studied them under a microscope and discovered spiral grooves. Based on the distance between these grooves, he calculated that the drill that made them must have advanced into the granite with a feed rate hundreds of times greater than the capabilities of modern drills. It cut through granite as we cut through butter. We see an impossible precision at Pumapunku and impossible tools in Egypt. The pattern becomes undeniable. It is an echo of a forgotten capability, a technological ghost haunting the foundations of our most ancient structures, forcing us to ask not only what these people built, but what knowledge we have truly lost to the sands of time. If in Peru we find the whispers of a lost science of sound, then in India we may have found its laboratory. Our journey takes us to the state of Bihar, to the remote granite outcrops of the Barabar and Nagarjuni hills. Here, in the 3rd century before the Common Era, under the direction of the great Emperor Ashoka, the oldest rock-cut caves in India were supposedly created. They were intended for a
Stay with me, because what comes next has been hidden for a very long time, and only a few people know the truth behind it.
Of ascetics, the Ajivikas, fatalists who had renounced the material world. But these are not simple caves. They are an act of impossible engineering. They are not carved from soft sandstone, but hewn from monolithic granite, one of the hardest stones on Earth. Set aside for a moment the tectonic effort required to simply hollow out these chambers using the iron chisels of the Mauryan period. Approach the wall. Run your hand across its surface. You feel no tool marks. You feel glass. The walls are polished to flawless. Modern stonemasons achieve such an effect only with high-speed, diamond-tipped instruments and countless hours of powered polishing. How was this done 2,300 years ago? The true mystery, however, is not what you see, it is what you hear. Step inside the most famous of the caves, the Lomas Rishi. Close the world behind you and speak a single word. The sound does not die. It strikes the polished granite walls and returns. It resonates. It amplifies. The echo lingers for several seconds, creating a disorienting, otherworldly effect. A single utterance becomes a physical force. This polished surface was not for beauty, it was for acoustics. This is not an accident. It is acoustic engineering of the highest order. The official version holds that these were merely rooms for meditation. But why would ascetics, who had rejected the material world, require chambers of such impossible precision and unearthly acoustic property? An alternative theory is far more disturbing. What if these were not temples? What if they were machines, resonators, designed to study and harness the power of sound, the very power that legend insists moved stones in Peru and Egypt? What if we are looking not at places of worship, but at ancient laboratories of physics? There is one more crucial clue. At the entrance to the caves, inscriptions left by Emperor Ashoka dedicate them to the Ajivikas. But the inscriptions themselves are crude. They are scratched upon. They're incomparable to the craftsmanship of the cave itself. The implication is staggering. Ashoka did not build these caves. He found them. He discovered these ancient, impossible structures and, not understanding their true purpose, gifted them to monks. We see a pattern repeated across the ages, a later civilization discovering the incomprehensible work of a far older one and claiming it as its own. We are left looking at a relic of forgotten science, repurposed for prayer, its true function resonating silently, waiting to be heard. We have grappled with impossible weights, with technologies and tools that defy explanation. Now, we must confront an impossible timeline. Our search leads us to one of the most wild and desolate frontiers on the planet, Gornaya Shoria in southern Siberia. In the year 2013, an expedition led by Georgy Sidorov, following local rumors, pushed deep into this inaccessible territory. What they found defies all conventional frameworks. There, on a remote mountaintop, at an altitude of over 1,000 meters, were the remains of a wall built of granite megaliths. But these are blocks that make the legendary stones of Baalbek seem modest. By some estimates, individual stones weigh 3, perhaps even 4,000 tons. 4,000 tons, the weight of a small naval destroyer. They are stacked with apparent precision, engineered with flat surfaces, sharp corners, and right angles. The official scientific reaction? A near total silence. The few geologists who have commented dismiss it as a freak of nature. They claim it is the result of columnar jointing, a process where internal pressures cause granite to fracture naturally into rectangular blocks. But what we see in Gornaya Shoria is profoundly different. The causeway is a chaotic lattice of hexagonal columns. Here we find massive rectilinear blocks stacked one upon the other. Moreover, the expedition reported bizarre anomalies.
Welcome to my channel. If you're fascinated by hidden truths, lost civilizations, and unsolved mysteries, you're in the right place. Make sure to subscribe and leave a like so you don't miss what's coming next. Because what you're about to see.
The needles of compasses spinning wildly in the megalith's presence, and most troubling of all, traces resembling fusion on the stone, as if the rock itself was subjected to a blast of extreme, unimaginable heat. Can nature stack 4,000-ton blocks at perfect right angles? Can it melt granite? Or are we staring at the ruins of a structure built by whom? And in what forgotten age? In this entire region, there is not a whisper of a known civilization capable of even dreaming of such an undertaking. From the frozen peaks of Siberia, our timeline plunges us beneath the waves. Off the coast of Japan, near the island of Yonaguni, here, in 1986, a diver named Kihachiro Aratake stumbled upon a colossal underwater structure. It ribble fields. And once again, a battle of two theories is joined. Geologist Robert Schoch contends it is a natural formation, a massive block of sandstone that simply fractured along its existing fault lines. But Professor Masaaki Kimura of the University of the Ryukyus, after hundreds of dives on the site, vehemently disagrees. He points to features he insists nature could not create. What appears to be a road encircling the monument, two immense columns standing side by side, what look resembling a great turtle. But here lies the crux of the matter. If this is an artificial structure, it must have been built on dry land, and the last time this monument saw the sun was at the end of the last ice age, at least 10,000 years ago. The stones cry out, from the Siberian mountains to the ocean floor off Japan. They present a timeline that should not exist, evidence of engineering that seems impossible. They suggest that the story we tell ourselves about our past is incomplete, that perhaps we are a species with amnesia, living amongst the ruins of a world we have long since forgotten. It is a world that could only have been built when the oceans were lower, a time before the end of the last great ice age. We are speaking of a chronology that pushes beyond 10, even 12,000 years into the past. And this brings us to the discovery that changes everything, to the smoking gun that in a single stroke rewrites the story of the human race. Göbekli Tepe. In the rolling hills of southeastern Turkey during the 1990s, German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt began to excavate a peculiar rounded mound. What he unearthed would alter the very foundations of history. He found a temple, but not just any temple. He found the oldest known megalithic complex on planet Earth. Radiocarbon dating places its construction between 9,000 and 6,000 BCE. That is 11,600 years ago. It is 6,000 years older than Stonehenge, 7,000 years older than the Great Pyramids of Giza. It was built during an epoch when, we have been taught, all of humanity consisted of primitive hunter-gatherers clad in animal skins and...
Most people stop watching right here, but if you continue, you'll discover something almost no one knows.
Dwelling in caves. Yet these primitive people quarried, carved, and erected colossal T-shaped pillars of limestone, some weighing up to 20 tons. They adorned them with impossibly complex, stylized reliefs of animals, serpents, scorpions, lions. They transported these monoliths and arranged them into perfect celestial circles, and then, for a reason that remains a profound mystery, after more than 1,000 years of use, they deliberately buried the entire complex, preserving it under a mountain of their own making. Göbekli Tepe is not merely an anomaly, it is the end of the old model of history. It proves that our timeline is wrong. It demonstrates that a highly organized civilization, capable of monumental architecture, astronomical alignment, and sophisticated symbolic art, existed long before we were thought to have invented agriculture, writing, or the city. The clues, when assembled, begin to form a disturbing mosaic. We have the impossible weights of Baalbek and Yangshan, the impossible vitrified stonework of Sacsayhuamán, the acoustic engineering of the Barabar caves, and, at Göbekli Tepe, an impossible date, 11,600 years ago. What if these are not disparate chapters from different books? What if they are fragments of a single shattered narrative, a story torn apart by one catastrophic event? Let us return to the dates. Göbekli Tepe was built just after 11,600 years ago. What happened immediately before then? Science knows this period as the Younger Dryas, a sudden, violent reversion to full Ice Age conditions that began approximately 12,800 years ago and lasted for 1,200 years. Ice core data reveals this was not a gradual change. It was a climatic collapse. Global temperatures plummeted by 10, even 15 degrees in the span of a single decade. What could cause such a cataclysm? A growing consensus of scientists is converging on a single, terrifying answer: an impact. A collision with the fragmented pieces of a disintegrating comet. Across the globe, from North America to Europe and the Middle East, we find a scar on the timeline. A thin, dark layer of sediment known as the Black Mat, dated precisely to 12,800 years ago. Within it, a cocktail of cosmic fallout, microscopic nanodiamonds, iridium, and tiny melted spherules, the signature of an extraterrestrial object exploding in our atmosphere. We are left staring into the abyss of a forgotten past, piecing together the echoes of a story that was almost erased. A story of a civilization that rose, built wonders that defy our understanding, and then vanished in a global firestorm. We are the survivors of an amnesia, and the ruins are only now beginning to speak. The evidence is undeniable, etched into the very crust of the earth, the signature of a cosmic strike. This single cataclysmic impact ignited global firestorms. It unleashed mega tsunamis that scoured the continents, plunging the world into an age of suffocating darkness and brutal cold. It was an extinction event that erased the great beasts of the Ice Age, the mammoths, the saber-toothed cats. And it erased a civilization. Now, look again at the evidence, but in this new, terrifying light. What if Baalbek, Pumapunku, Sacsayhuamán, and the underwater structures of Yonaduni are not the works of primitive man? What if they're the last remaining fragments, the relics of that very antediluvian world? A high-technology civilization of the Ice Age, wiped from the face of the earth 12,800 years ago. And Göbekli Tepe. What if this is not the dawn of civilization, but its twilight? A desperate final gesture from the few who survived. An ark of knowledge constructed by a band of shattered scientists and engineers to pass a message to the future. They carved into the stone pillars the images of the animals that haunted their skies. They built this temple with the last vestiges of their lost science, a monument to the world they had lost. In this model, the scattered pieces of our past click into place. The Romans discover the Cyclopean platform at Baalbek and, awestruck, build their own temple upon it. The Inca find the impossible walls of Sacsayhuamán and build their capital around them, attributing the work to a race of giants. The Egyptians raise their pyramids from sandstone, but for the most critical components, the king's chamber, the sarcophagi of the Serapeum, they use or attempt to copy a technology left behind by the gods. Centuries later, Emperor Yongle of China, with access to ancient archives, tries to replicate the megalithic feats of his ancestors, and fails. The knowledge was already gone. We are not the pinnacle of progress. We are a species with amnesia. We have built our world upon the ruins of another, a world we have no memory of. But the
Stay with me, because what comes next has been hidden for a very long time, and only a few people know the truth behind it.
The stones remember. This investigation is not over. It is just beginning. These megaliths are not mere tourist attractions. They are evidence at the scene of a crime committed against our own collective memory. The question is no longer if they could have done it. The question is, how soon will we admit that they did? And what else, besides the stones, did they leave for us to find? What forgotten sciences, what lost arts lie dormant within these silent sentinels, waiting for the day we are finally ready to listen?